Alright guys, today I'm going to be showing how to play the Ancient Gear archetype, specifically the not the tribute, the fusion style one, because the tribute one is frankly old and outdated. You're probably not going to get far with it even in a casual game, and I might as well say now that this is a casual deck. It's not going to work against any competitive decks, because if you get one of your fusions negated, you're probably done for, because there is not a whole lot of recovery in this deck. I'm going to show you what each card does individually, but first I'm going to show the deck list, just so you get to see here. There's 3 gear towns, and of course after you learn the deck you can edit it however you want. 3 catapults, 3 fortresses, 3 ancient gear fusions, 3 overload fusions. This is one that you can choose to switch out with something else. Get 3 galaxy cyclones, you can definitely switch that out for a cosmic cyclone. Raikegi, might not want to use that with how this deck works. 3 golems, 3 ultimate golems, reactor dragons, gears, hunting hounds, wyverns. These 2, very important. You definitely want to run 3 of these. There's frame, which it's okay. It's better than other options. Ash Blossom, depends how casual or competitive you want to play. And then box, which is it combos very well with wyvern, but we'll get to that in a bit. And then in the extra deck, ballista, howitzer, ultimate, megaton golem, and chaos giant. You want chaos giant for sure because it's basically the win condition of the deck, and the other ones are just there to either be the second best option or to help you get to the giant, like these 2. I'm going to do a test hand just to show you how it works. Alright, let's go in the test room. Alright, so the thing about this deck is you always want to go second, because it's an OTK deck, and if you go first, you're probably going to get destroyed before you can set anything up. This is a very, very good hand. Alright, so going to want to activate Fortress, which protects your Ancient Gears from monster effects, but in this case, more importantly, it also allows you to use Catapult to destroy it, which sets off both of their effects and lets you special summon 2 things from the deck, which in this case is going to be Hunting Hound, which Wyvern lets you search anything in Archetype basically, which in this case you want to go with Box, because Box's effect allows you to search another card, which frame, gadget, honestly doesn't matter a whole lot, but I'll go with gadget for now. So now that I have the 4 Ancient Gear monsters, I could use Ancient Gear Fusion, but just to show you off the effects, you can also use Hunting Hound here as a polymerization basically. It doesn't even have to be used as a material. Alright, now that all of them are gone, you have Chaos Giant out. And you could use Raikegi, although I think I'll save that just in case. And Chaos Giant is completely immune to spell and trap effects, and it can also attack every monster your opponent controls once each every turn. So if you do it against a swarm deck that has no monster effects to defend themselves, unlikely, but it could happen, then you'll be able to destroy them. It also has piercing damage. Catapult can also be activated from the graveyard to destroy another card, and it gives you a token, which you can really only use for fusion summoning, but that's not that bad. Especially not with this deck. Alright, okay, I think I'm going to search another box out. frame this time. Now that I have another 4 Ancient Gears, I can get a second Chaos Giant out. If you have 2 Chaos Giants and they don't have anything to defend themselves from it, the game's basically over. Alright, so that was the example of a very good hand, but it's still possible to brick. And that usually happens when you draw too many of the higher level monsters. Like Golem here is pretty good for like Ancient Gear Fusion. If you have Golem and Ancient Gear Fusion in your hand, then you're gonna have a free fusion out. But if you just have a whole handful of Golems or Reactor Dragons, you can't really do anything. And in that case, you're just done for. I know I can already get a giant out, but I'm not going to do that yet because I want to have some sort of a backup plan in case they destroy it, which is unlikely in a casual game, but if you're playing competitive, then it's actually pretty likely that they'll be able to stop it. And this is not a competitive deck, so I wouldn't recommend you try doing that. Ancient Gear Fusion also has the effect where if you have a Golem on the field, only on the field, it can't be used from your hand. If you have a Golem on the field and then use Fusion on it, you can actually use monsters from the deck too. And I know this is a really weak deck that I'm going up against. I just want to show you a couple of the combos you can do. The most important one in this deck probably is a Wyvern box one, because that gives you pretty much all of the materials you'll need. Hunting Hound's also really good. Not really for the burn damage, because it's so small, even though it's actually won me a game or two. But for the fusion effect, which makes it so if you don't get Ancient Gear Fusion, you can just get him out. Overload Fusion, I put that in here because if you get a Chaos Giant, you can just use Overload Fusion to get a second one, or in one funny duel, a third, which I just did for fun. Ask Shadowcat about that one. But, okay. Yeah, it doesn't happen a whole lot when you brick, but when you do, you're pretty much done for. There's nothing you can do. You always want to have either a Wyvern or a Hunting Hound, or both in your hand, because those are probably the best monsters in this deck. Oh. Well, I just messed that up, but with those high stats and the deck I'm up against, that probably won't make much of a difference, and I'll also be able to show his effect better, which is, of course, attacking multiple times a turn, which, if your opponents don't have the stats, it pretty much finishes them, which it will in this case. Now, even if your opponent has something like Mirror Force, it's not going to work. They can activate it. It might destroy some of your other cards. It won't affect Chaos Giant at all. So, you don't have to worry about that. What you do have to worry about is some more competitive monsters using their effects to get rid of them. And also, Kaijus. Kaijus will just mess up your day. So, there are some other cards that you might want to think about. Yeah, Ancient Gear Ballista, I didn't show it, but you're able to use it as basically a catapult to destroy one of your cards like Gear Town or Fortress. It could be either of them. But that will not only let you summon a card with either Fortress or Gear Town's effect, but also let you change another monster's attack defense to 0, which in this deck, not likely will have something with more than Chaos Giant's attack. It could happen. Unlikely, but it could happen. But if that does happen, then you can just use Ballista to reduce that to 0. And it also helps if you're trying to get someone to 0 in one turn and just set their defense to 0 so the piercing does more. Also, Howitzer, completely unaffected by other cards' effects. There are loopholes to this, of course, but it burn damages the opponent, but with such low stats, it's destroyed pretty fast, which is actually a good thing, because you get to summon any ancient gear from your deck, even Golem, even though it says it can't be special summoned. It actually can, because a lot of ancient gear cards, like the newer ones, have workarounds to this because they know that Golem is the best way to get out your fusion monsters. Because one of the things you can do is you can summon Golem with Howitzer, and then if you have an ancient gear fusion, even if you don't have any other ancient gears in your hand, then you can just get out a giant because you can use materials from your deck. I didn't draw like a single overload fusion, but those can be really helpful. I wouldn't recommend summoning these other guys unless you have to, because even though they use like only a couple less resources, they're a huge downgrade from Chaos Giant. Even though this guy can actually evolve into this guy if he's destroyed by a card effect. So that's basically how you play Ancient Gears, and you can switch out some cards if you really feel like it, but I feel like this works best.